Hey everyone, today we are continuing on with section 3.1, measuring economic activity and illustrating its variations. And now it's time for the illustrating its variations bit of it, specifically the business cycle. We'll start by watching a short video.
Let's take a journey to a galaxy far, far away on the planet Econoworld. I want to welcome you to the nation of Macro, where everything is big. Steaks are big, 72 ounces big. In the nation of Macro, movie theaters seat 10,000 people. Large iced coffees are big, 31 ounces. Wait a second, that's how big they already are. 31 gallons, now that's big. Nobody's falling asleep during economics lessons in Macro. Chocolate bars are twice as nice. Everything is big in Macro, and so is this lesson. Let's imagine for a few minutes that you're riding around for 4 days on a big unicycle in the business district of the city of Growth, which is the capital of Macro. It can't be that difficult to ride a unicycle, you tell yourself, with great anticipation of sitting on a seat way up high in the air. Here's where the unicycle takes you, and what you observe along the way. As you pass through the center plaza of the city, you enjoy a quick look at the downtown Central Park with its soft green grass and a peaceful river flowing through it. A few moments later, you pass by a factory that makes chocolate. Now this is really starting to get interesting. Either that or the dark chocolate I just ate is starting to kick in right about now. As you pass by, you turn and gaze into some large windows in the front of the factory that allow you a rare look at the activities taking place inside. What's going on in there, you ask yourself? Inside the factory, several machines are going at a solid pace, all connected to each other, and an assembly line is at the end of those machines, transporting chocolate bars towards an area where they will get wrapped and boxed up for distribution throughout the land of Macro. Workers are spread out across the factory, and most of them seem busy, although you notice several of them standing in a corner goofing off and blowing bubbles. For a quick second, you think to yourself, wow, what an easy job those people have. You finally pass by the whole factory and continue on your way through the city, wishing that you could take some of that chocolate with you. As you continue to daydream about chocolate, you happen to pass by the mall, noticing that it's not empty and it's not full. So this is what happens on your first day of riding the unicycle through the city. The second day, you get back on your unicycle again. As you pass through the city center, you travel the same path as before, and you're most interested in looking in on the factory to see what's going on inside. This time, as you pass by the front window and gaze into the factory, you can tell that every machine is going at full steam. It looks as though the machines are going faster this time. You look around the building, searching for the people who were standing in the corner goofing off before, but they aren't there. Every single person appears to be working very hard. And you even notice more people in there than you saw before. Chocolate bars are flying out of the machines onto the assembly line. All of a sudden, you see one of the machines break down because the workers are working it so hard. You're quite happy on this day because you just got a raise at your job, and you're on your way to the mall to spend it. When you get to the mall, you can barely find a parking spot for your unicycle because there are so many people there. So this is what happens to you during your second day of adventures. Now it's the third day. You're riding on your unicycle through the city of Growth in the nation of Macro. As you pass by the factory, you gaze into the front window once more to see what's happening in there. This time, the machines are barely going. Almost no one is working in there. Very few chocolate bars are coming out. After you pass the factory, you pass the mall, and you notice that almost nobody is there. Where did everybody go, you wonder? On the third day, things aren't looking so good. Finally, it's day 4, and you're starting to really get in great shape now because you've been riding this darn unicycle over and over again through the city, which is no joke. Your curiosity swells, and you ride past the factory. As you do, you gaze into the window. But this time, you can't see anything because the window is boarded up. Once you adjust your eyes, you can see that over the window is a sign that says, for sale, and you realize that your beloved chocolate factory has closed down. The phone rings, and you take the call while you're writing. Although everything is big in the nation of macro, your mood is definitely not, because this is a call from your boss, and she tells you that business is slow and then lets you go. As you pass by the factory and continue to ride through the city, all you can think of is how many chocolate bars you're going to need once you get home. As you pass by the mall, you notice that there is no mall. It's been demolished by a wrecking ball. What a rough day this has been. Thankfully, you wake up the next day full of energy. You once again ride through the city, and you discover that not only has the chocolate factory started up again, but there's a new mall, where the old one used to be. People are starting to drive in and park, and things are looking up once again. Today you stop for a big iced coffee, and then your cell phone rings. As you take the call, a really big smile covers your face as a recruiter tells you that you have a new job waiting for you as a chocolate salesman. So what we've been talking about is the business cycle.
Okay, firstly, I hope everyone picked up that he was actually on a cycle to demonstrate the business cycle. But in all seriousness, that was a useful summation of the business cycle. This is how we show it visually. This is straight from a textbook. We got real GDP on the y-axis, time on the x. We then see the cyclical nature of real GDP over time. It increases and decreases at various speeds, right? Now, the dotted line here is the trend line, and this marks potential GDP. Now, I said that with inverted commas because this is an economic term, so it's always a little bit different, and also clearly GDP can rise above its potential, so it's strange wording, let's face it. So potential output of an economy is the level of output reached when the economy is at the full employment level of output. And what's the full employment level of output? The full employment level of output is a strange one. It's the level of outputs produced by the economy when there is only natural unemployment. So that means full employment does not equal 0% unemployment. Rather, it's assumed that in a healthy, growing economy, there will always be some level of unemployment. And it's usually estimated to be around 4 to 6% is the natural rate of unemployment. So this is what can account for an economy producing beyond its potential. Now, if those words seem a bit strange, we're going to hit them again many, many times in the course, so don't worry about it. Okay, we'll have a quick look at the 4 stages of the cycle. Okay, the expansion. Yeah, it's important here to say that there are different words used for the different stages of the cycle. So you've sort of got to be expected to understand any of them when they are used. So the expansion or the recovery is the slow, steady growth that countries want. It implies lowering unemployment, steady growth with some but not too much inflation. The peak, or sometimes called the boom, but I didn't write it there, is where the economy produces to its capacity. As more resources are employed, there are shortages leading to a high rate of inflation. This is when the economy goes beyond its potential, that full employment level of output. The contraction or the recession is when the real GDP decreases. So a technical recession is where it decreases for 6 months or more, or 2 quarters of a year. Resources become unemployed, and therefore there is less pressure on prices, and the prices increase more slowly, or they will fall. The trough, or the depression, which I also haven't written there, is where real GDP bottoms out. More resources are unemployed, and there's stronger likelihood of deflation, which is when prices go down. A way that I like to think about the different phases of the business cycle is as the seasons of the year. So we'll just have a look. A boom is like summer or the peak. The sun is shining, everyone's out and about, doing things, enjoying life. It doesn't seem like there's ever going to be hard times again. Then the contraction is like autumn. So it's the autumn leaves turning brown, falling to the ground. Things aren't growing anymore. Winter represents the trough. everything is grey and miserable, the people aren't happy. What spring represents is the recovery. From the deadness of the trough, we start to get new growth starting to shoot. Better times will come again. For a link back to our previous knowledge, we can consider that potential GDP line to be similar to the PPC. So when potential GDP rises over time, we are also seeing a gradual shift out of the PPC of an economy, like that. That's what should be happening over time, that long-term trend line sloped upwards. Now, 3 more things to know about the business cycle. It's not regular. We can't say, oh, there was a recession 4 years ago, so we're due for another. It's time to contract again. It doesn't work that way. For instance, Australia, until COVID-19 hit, we didn't have a recession for 30 years straight. Now, that example of 30 years also shows that expansions tend to last longer than contractions. So imagine the economy shrinking for 30 years straight. Everyone, like, less and less jobs, less and less production for 30 years straight. That would be a terrible time for everybody. It's important to remember that these expansions and contractions are not equal, because that's how it looks in the business cycle diagram. We always draw just like this, and it makes them look equal. They're not really equal though. And finally, many of you would have made this connection as you're watching the videos, but there is quite a strong correlation between employment and real GDP. They both rise and fall together. We'll see more other correlations in the future. But as more goods and services are produced, more GDP, then more labor is needed to produce them. So more employment or less unemployment. Okay, that's all for this video. We'll work with this a little more in class. Thanks.